Okay, so it seems like there's a little bit of a schedule mix-up. So the session before this, the pop-up demo theater that Heather and I just gave, was about JavaScript. But the description for that session was associated with this session. So this session, the content we prepared, is about working with a pop-up in ArcGIS Online, no JavaScript. So we'll talk about arcade expressions and making your pop-up in ArcGIS Online web map look good. But I thought I would see what people were here for, because we can redo the demo theater we just did. So if you're, how many people are here to see JavaScript content? Okay, how many online content? We can do a little bit of stuff from both, maybe. I'll do sort of the highlights. I feel like I'm just going to confuse everybody. But we can do some of the ArcGIS Online stuff and some of the JavaScript stuff as much as we can in 25 minutes. So I apologize for the mix-up. For those of you who just sat through the last session, the JavaScript stuff will be a repeat. But we have some intro slides in the ArcGIS Online stuff that we can sort of skip. So I'll start with the ArcGIS Online content really quickly, and then we'll move over to JavaScript. And I apologize for that. I just noticed it 20 minutes ago, and I was like, this doesn't match what we're talking about. My name is Kelly Hutchins. I'm here with my colleague Heather Gonzago. In general, I'll go over this really quickly. When you're working with your ArcGIS Online pop-ups, and this applies to the JavaScript pop-ups too, right? There's some things that you want to do to make sure it's a good pop-up. The far pop-up with the title where it says NYC_dog_licensing, we see pop-ups like that all the time, where people just leave the field alias, which is all caps, has underscores. Their pop-up will have row numbers, object IDs, numbers that don't maybe matter to your audience. So I think the first rule of authoring a good pop-up is to know your audience. And if they're not people who know what an object ID is, which would be anybody who's not working with the data, right? Or a row number, you can hide that in the pop-up. Just uncheck that box and don't show it to them, because it's just confusing and it doesn't add any more information and clutters your pop-up. So the other one's a simple example of the same content, but we've turned off a bunch of fields. We've formatted dates. So if you can see in the far one, they have the time and the date with it. That time is the animal's birth date. I doubt that they really know that that animal was born at 4:00 a.m., right? So it's really the date that's important there. So we've just formatted it to just show November 2017, or maybe November 12th, 2017 if we want. And then we just restrict a lot of the database-specific stuff that you might care about, but your target audience may not care about. So it's just a matter of knowing that audience. ArcGIS Online gives you tools that let you format the dates and the numbers. I'll show you that really quickly. Everything's going to be really slow just to add to the okay, so I have this web map that's that same data. And this is all possible with JavaScript too. So these, again, are just things you should be thinking about. Being really slow. So I just go to configure pop-up. This is the one, again, that has the underscores. I just want to change that, make sure I get rid of things like underscores and caps. The configure attribute section is where you can do things like change the alias. So by default, this might be row number. I probably just want to turn that off so it's not displayed. Things like animal name, it's all, smushed together. I can just switch it to name, and then that's how it will display in online. Birth month, so here it's a date, so it gives us the format options. It just lets us pick a way to format this, so I can do that. Numbers, you can also format, if they have a decimal place and stuff. So it's worth spending a few minutes in the configure attributes section of ArcGIS Online, or if you're working in JavaScript, to do this in JavaScript. One thing I will point out is if you're working with web map content any pop-up information or any pop-up work that you do in ArcGIS Online with configuring the attributes, changing the aliases, setting up the way the content looks, will carry over into your applications that use that web map. So if you're working with a web app builder or any of the configurable apps, or if you create your own JavaScript application that consumes a web map, that content you just get for free. And you don't have to write the code to format the date. That information appears that way in the configurable app. So it's probably the most important lesson we could share with you, because I see it on a daily basis in the applications that people create. Yes? Right, so the question was, there was edit showed up in the pop-up. If it's an editable feature layer, it has an option to edit that feature, yeah. In 3x, that's 3x thing. So this is another way that you can format content in ArcGIS Online. When you choose to configure your pop-up content, you can use this text editor to modify things like the font color. The font weight can be set to bold or italic. You can do some justification of the formatting info and set up hyperlinks, all using the tools available inside of this configuration experience. So it's a nice place to spend some time as well. Another thing that you can do in the pop-up in ArcGIS Online is define custom HTML. So there's a help topic. I'll click on this. That shows the custom HTML that you can have. Not all HTML is supported. We strip some of it out for security purposes. So things like iframes aren't allowed, and you can enter them in, but they'll be stripped out. I shouldn't even try and open this anymore. It's going to be really slow. Okay, well, take my word for it. There's a help topic called Supported HTML in ArcGIS Online that lists the HTML that is supported. There's a little bit that I've got in this screen capture here. Shows things that you can do, things like video, audio, image tags, tables, all of that can happen in the custom HTML within ArcGIS Online. So if you're a developer, you're working in ArcGIS Online, you know HTML, you want to make some modifications to the pop-up, you can do that inside of the pop-up editor. Here's an example we have where we're inside the pop-up editor in the custom attribute display. The button that you hit to get into HTML view is this guy right here next to the font. If you hit that, it pops you into HTML view, and you can write HTML. So here we're just creating a table and putting some content inside of a table. You can add some table background colors and modify the look and feel of it a little bit. So that's a question that's come up a couple times on GeoNet, is how do I put it? Because you can have the default attribute table, but sometimes people just want 2 or 3 attributes in a table plus some other information around it, and this is a quick way to do that. So another one that comes up all the time, HTML video tag. So here you can just use video, provide the source, which is the URL to your video, and it will play inside the pop-up. So I'll show you this really quickly. Maybe I'll show you this really quickly. Sort of scared to click on anything. Pop-up video. So here, when we configured the pop-up, we just went into the HTML, specified that content, and then here we have a video of a dog playing in the snow that can just play inside of that pop-up. So this is a common question that comes up too. It's possible in ArcGIS Online without writing custom code, and it's also possible in your JavaScript applications with custom code. Heather, at any point, if you have any information, just holler. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so Arcade, how many people in here have worked with Arcade? So yeah, it's good spending some time if you're working in ArcGIS Online, and also JavaScript, to spend a little bit of time learning Arcade. it lets us apply these expressions to our pop-up attributes. So you can do a lot of things that used to be sort of hard to do in the past are much easier now. So in your pop-up configuration process, pop-up configuration section, there's a expression area where you can create an arcade expression. You have access to your fields that are in your pop-up, and there are also some functions that you can use to do various things with those pop-ups, and we'll look at an example on that. A common one that comes up, or used to come up, is email and phone numbers. You have email and phone number in your pop-up window. You want to make these clickable, right? You want someone to be able to click on that and have it open email, or click on the phone link and have it open up, you know, if you have Skype or if you're on your cell phone, to actually dial that number. So you were able to do it before Arcade, but you would have to do this mail to sort of hack inside of your data attribute. It wasn't very fun. But let me actually just look into this, this sample really quickly. And then I'll show you one more online sample and we'll switch to some JavaScript stuff. So let's go back. Okay. Okay, so here I have one layer turned on. This is with the unformatted content, so if someone wanted to email me, they'd have to copy this, paste it into an email editor. That's no fun. So here we have a second example with it formatted. They can just click on this and it'll email me directly, or click call, and in my example, it's going to try and open Skype for Business and call me. So this is a much nicer experience for people working with your pop-up. And the way we do that in Configure Pop-up is first we create these expressions using Arcade. So I'll just show you an example of one of the expressions, the telephone expression. All I do is just create this link, so it has these built-in globals that are access to the attributes. So I have an attribute that has my phone number in this database. So I just add this TEL : in front of it. That tells the link in HTML this telephone number. It's a special way that it knows it's a telephone number. When someone clicks on it, it opens it. So I don't have to store tel : in my database anymore. I can just make this Arcade expression that appends that to it. And then same thing with email. There's just an email link. Then I just come to my custom attribute display, configure it, and I just make a hyperlink. So the hyperlink, the URL that it's going to hyperlink to is that custom expression. So the expression's available to me in the pop-up. And the link text is my actual phone number. So now you have a clickable link and a clickable email address. So that's really simple with Arcade. You can also combine fields. This is the last one I'll show on the ArcGIS Online stuff. But in this example, we have an attribute table that has multiple fields for facilities. Some of them are populated, some of them are not. So it looks like it's recreation data. So it has a field that stores whether or not it has food service, one that stores whether or not there's a pro shop. So I could have all that different information listed in my pop-up. It would be empty for some, it would be populated for others, or just say yes, no. But instead, I just create an if statement inside this Arcade expression that says, hey, if there's a pro shop, set this expression to be facilities pro shop. So that in my attribute table, I can just have a facilities section and it'll list pro shop, you know, food service, etc. So people aren't scrolling through a bunch of stuff that doesn't apply each time they look at a feature. So if you're not familiar with Arcade, it's worth spending a little bit of time getting familiar with it. Again, anything that you configure in the pop-up in ArcGIS Online, save with your web map, you get it in any applications that use that web map. So that's a really nice feature. Okay, so sorry for the switch. Now we're gonna move over and do some of the JavaScript. So people who were in the earlier session have already seen all of this. Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Okay, Heather's going to show a session, and then she had a good idea that we can just ask you guys what you want to see, and we can show you some stuff. We can do it more informally, but.
We talked a little bit. She was talking a little bit about the arcade expressions. There is a full hour-long session if you guys are interested in that, and it's not just for pop-ups and labeling. You can also use it when you're working with rendering as well. So that is Thursday. Christian is doing that with Dave Baer. Dave is one of our developers who actually was involved in writing the arcade engine. So you're definitely good if you really are fully interested in this and you want to kind of get into, have some deep questions. That's probably a good session to go to. Alrighty. So we were mentioning there was a mix-up. So we wanted to talk a bit about the ArcGIS Online side of things, but since we already basically did a lot of the JavaScript API specific stuff prior to this, we could basically kind of go over some of the things that we talked about, but we don't have the full half hour to do that. So we were hoping if you guys came in here and you were looking for some specifics, maybe between the two of us, we can, we'll put our dancing shoes on and we can try to get, we can figure some things out and answer some questions. So instead of just having to sit here and listen to us give some canned presentations that may not be pertinent to what you're actually wanting to find out, if you have any questions, just now's the time.
If not, we'll just show the slides.
We'll show some samples.
Anybody have any questions? Something they've been struggling to do?
Is there anything specific that you wanted to know? Okay.
So the question was, is there an easy way to make the pop-ups movable? You can dock them to the corners in 4X, but you're talking about like moving it around. It's not available out of the box. I don't know if they've had any talk about making it movable. So no, I think you'd be writing your own pop-up at that point. Right, so the question was if users are editing and you set up any customizations, when they click edit, does that just go away and it just shows the edit attributes? So editing is only available in 3X right now, and yes, it just shows that tabular view of that data, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So you could make your own custom pop-up content that handled the editing for you if you wanted a certain look and feel. I'm sorry? So the question was, can you export or import your pop-ups? Yeah, so the question was, if you've got something all formatted and you want to replicate it, can you export it all out? So you're talking about in ArcGIS Online. So you can save it with the web map. You can also save a pop-up with a layer. So anytime you use that layer, that pop-up content will come with it. As far as exporting it out, that pop-up is defined as JSON that's stored inside of the web map. So yes, if you're comfortable with the browser developer tools, you can go to the network tab, you can look at the requests, you can see the web map requests, you can open it up and look at the JSON, copy that out as a file, but then there's not a super easy way to reapply it. So if you're working with JavaScript, that solution would be okay, but not so much in ArcGIS Online. So.
There is one exception here. We have some of you guys may be familiar with this. Any of you guys use AGO Assistant? It's awesome. If you haven't, it's really, really, really good utility to work with. I'm sorry. So basically what it does, it's AGO-assistant.esri.com. What it does is it allows you to log in with your ArcGIS Online or your portal credentials, and it allows you then to browse to whatever items you have stored in your organization that you have whatever you have access to within this content. So you are asking, can I export out my pop-up? A lot of times, I know for me, what I'll do is and not even just for pop-ups, I'll make something in a web map, like I'll render something, and I like the way it looks, but I'm not quite sure exactly maybe how how the field information needs to be set up, or sometimes when you get a lot of array or a lot of objects and nested in these arrays, I just get lost in all of the brackets. So for me, what I like to do is I'll go ahead and I'll save it out within my web map, and then I can open up ArcGIS on the AGO Assistant, and then within AGO Assistant, you specify that web map or that item. You just search for it. There's a search box at the top, and my machine just froze. There's a search box at the top, and it allows you to go in. You can copy things. You can copy paste. You can actually even edit some of that JSON. And what I'll do sometimes is I'll see how I have things set up within that web map. I can say, even like with rendering, I can say, okay, well, I have it. This is how my stops are set up with my visual variables, or this is how with my pop-up, this is how the media info is broken out. And I can duplicate that information and bring that over when I'm writing it out in the actual API within my JavaScript code. Okay. So I'm sorry, it's super slow right now, and it probably would take a little bit longer to have to go through everything. But if anybody is interested in some of that, we are having an integrating apps with your portal session. I don't know what time. It's later today.
4, I think.
And we'll talk about that a little bit as well. We'll talk about the AGO Assistant, how you can actually see things. Okay.
Thank you. I forget about the AGO Assistant. We probably have time for one more question before we have to scoot out to let the next session come in. So, for the JavaScript talk, yeah, I can put the slides in my GitHub repo. Let me show that to you. They're not there now, but I will get them there next week. If you don't see them there, you can holler at me on GitHub and say, hey, you promised, and I'll move them out there. So if you just go to GitHub and then Kelly Hutchins, we'll put the slides there. So again, if you don't see them early next week, like Tuesday or Wednesday, just shoot me a message and say, hey, you promised to put the slides out there, and we'll get them out there. And the demos will be out there as well. There's already one of the demos that we showed in the JavaScript section was a hover map, and that's already out there in my GitHub repo. Heather has one on DOM node. We'll get that out there. We'll get a link to it out there.
Yeah, that's on my repo. But
okay,
yeah.
Well, I'll just put a link to it in the slides to your repo. Okay, well, again, I'm sorry about the confusion, and thank you
for your
for coming.
patience.